G'day guys and gal. Although your parents will rarely admit it, they have favorites. Sure, they may love you and your siblings equally, but they do not like you evenly, if that makes sense. So when you take the Emperor of Mankind, who hasn't been winning any Father of the Millennium awards recently, this disparity becomes significantly more noticeable, with him literally antagonizing some of his sons so much that he basically delivered them into the hands of the demon gods of hell. But whilst it's easy to see who definitely isn't his favorite, it's actually a massive challenge to figure out who comes in as number one, as there are some serious contenders to choose from, and his favorite has changed a few times. Before we get started, a big Merry Christmas to everyone. I hope you had a nice time, maybe saw some family, maybe saw some friends, or maybe just watched some solid festive themed porn. As my little gift, I'm running a Boxing Day post-Christmas sale on some of the Majorkill merch items. Due to returns or a few items not selling or keeping some items in reserve as well as a minor restock, we are left with a small quantity of some of the designs after each drop. So I thought, why not slap a chunky 25% discount on top of it for anyone that missed out on previous merch drops or just wanted to pick up an extra item or two. Not all designs will be available in this sale as they have completely sold out, and I want those who bought them to feel special in the knowledge that they are one of the few people on the planet that own that particular design. However, the Reject You t-shirt and singlet is available, as well as the Ashamed t-shirt and singlet. On top of that, the Nothing to Lose singlet is still around for this sale, but not the t-shirt version. The Weak Flesh design is also a part of the sale in both t-shirt and singlet form, as well as the Sacrifice t-shirt and singlet. Both version 1 and 2 of the signature hoodies still have a handful left over. Sale will run for a couple days or until we sell out, which I don't think should take too long since there is literally just a few dozen of these left. Link is below. Today we'll discuss the various favorite sons of the Emperor to try to decide who is the definitive golden child. As I said, his favorite has changed a few times, so we will pick who was the favorite for the longest, as well as the genuine reasons for that. Let's get into it. The best way to go about this would be via a process of elimination, which will also allow us to quickly discuss why the biggies seem to despise some of his sons as well. Straight up, Angron, Conrad, Mortarion, Perturabo, Jagadai, and Fulgrim were never on the Emperor's list of sons he even remotely liked. Angron he saw as already broken before he found him, and thus was a dying tool to be used to break and destroy. Angron was also unruly and hard to control, two things the Emperor hated. Conrad was likewise damaged, with his insanity making the Emperor instantly cold to him. Mortarion was likewise a brooding cold man, with his love of chemical warfare and twisted view of the galaxy not being particularly appealing to the Emperor. The Emperor also wasn't a fan of Mortarion's hardline anti-Psyker stance and his stubbornness, thus the Emperor decided to humiliate Mortarion when they first met, challenging him to take on his adoptive father, and when he failed, stepping in to easily save him. This act would forever make Morty resentful of the Emperor, so good work on that one, Big E. The Emperor felt bad for Perturabo when they met. He knew Perty's attitude towards life would cause him a lot of suffering, and he also felt bad that Perty could pretty much know everything when he saw it, thus didn't get to enjoy the wonders of learning and discovery. That, plus Perty could instantly see the Eye of Terror from anywhere in the galaxy, which would have been fucking terrifying. So the Emperor didn't particularly like Perturabo, but he felt pity for him, and he would always choose Rogel Dawn for more dignified things rather than Perturabo. Jagadai and the Emperor never really saw eye to eye. Jagadai didn't want to join the Emperor, and he saw him as a tyrant, the kind of tyrant he had just freed his homeworld from. However, Jagadai also had something many of his brothers did not: basic common sense. He would take a tyrant who was building up and protecting mankind as opposed to Horus, who wanted to fuck everyone to death with demons. However, this also meant that the Emperor didn't particularly like the Khan either, and was even pretty surprised when he remained loyalist. Surprisingly, the Emperor didn't actually care too much for Fulgrim. Now you might be like, Majorkill, you fucking petrol-sniffing drungo. He allowed the Emperor's children to wear the Palatine Aquila, he called them the Emperor's children, and he spoke highly of various Emperor children's space marines. How the hell does he not like Fulgrim? And yeah, sure, he liked the Legion, but all of this stuff came prior to Fulgrim's discovery. The Emperor saw Fulgrim as a bit of a simp who was riddled with insecurities and the desire to be better than others. So while the Emperor didn't particularly dislike Fulgrim, he also didn't really seem to ever pay him much attention or really give a shit about him. So those are definitely the non-favorites. What about the middle ground ones? The ones the Emperor liked, but not really that much. Well, surprisingly, Lorgar was on this list, not on the hated ones. See, out of all the Primarchs, Lorgar looked most like the Emperor. He also had a similar level of gravity gravitas and presence. The reason why the Emperor got so fucking angry at Lorgar for being a religious simp was because he actually gave a shit about Lorgar and was frustrated that a Primarch he cared about was failing him. This is why the Emperor did fuck all about Angron's genocidal rampages or Conrad skinning babies. He just really didn't give a shit about them. Sure, the main issue was that Lorgar's religion was slowing down the Great Crusade, while as Angron and Conrad's issues weren't. However, the Emperor's reaction to Lorgar was very personal as opposed to his usual detached self. Surprisingly, the Emperor also didn't have a strong emotional attachment to Rogel Dawn. He saw Rogel as this super reliable, super good son, but their relationship was very professional and cold. They did not have the intense connection like the Emperor had with Sanguinius or Magnus. Rogel was a fantastic proxy, kind of like the best employee in the company, but just like any good boss, you shouldn't become friends with your employees, no matter how hard they fortify your office against health and safety inspectors. Although in recent times, where Guilliman has become the Emperor's favourite through the virtue of being literally the only fucking option, the Big E wasn't the biggest G-Man fan. He was impressed by Guilliman and proud of him. However, during the Horus Heresy, the Emperor was concerned that Guilliman would take the opportunity to declare Ultramar's own independent empire, which Guilliman actually did, but for the right reasons. When the Lion was heading to Ultramar to meet Guilliman, and if necessary, destroy him if he was a traitor, the Emperor was actually glad with the Lion, and was happy for him to kill G-Man if G-Man was empire building inappropriately. The Emperor really liked the random hectic shit his Primarch sons did. He liked Sanguinius' spiciness, Leman Russ's feralness, Ferris's savagery. He wasn't huge on how clean and straight G-Man was. After all, the Emperor is a very, very dramatic man. I mean, he claimed not to be a god, but made himself tall as hell and wields a holy flaming sword while decked out in golden armor, leading golden angelic warriors. The Emperor is very, very extra. As for Alfarius, the Emperor literally handballed him to Malcador from day one and never had much to do with him, so it shows there wasn't really much going on there. So that cuts out all the sons he disliked or just really didn't have much to do with. What about the ones he liked? Horus was actually the Emperor's favourite for quite some time. He was the first Primarch to be found, was a natural born warlord, and spent decades by the Emperor's side. He was also chosen as War Master, first amongst equals. Now you could argue that there was some 4D chess going on here, but it's clear that Horus was in the Emperor's good books for a long time. However, with what happened with Horus going full Boldhud Jihad heresy mode, he's clearly no longer Daddy's favourite. The Emperor actually really liked Corvus. When the two met, the Emperor told Corvus a lot more about the warp in the universe than he did to most of his other sons. When Corvus lost most of his legion, the Emperor allowed Corvus to take the secrets to the Primarch project back with him to his homeworld in order to rapidly rebuild his legion, creating kind of like proto-Primaris Marines, even though the risk of it falling into traitor hands would have been devastating. Russ was obviously one of the Emperor's favourites as he saw him as a very reliable and powerful tool to do his dirty work. However, surprisingly, it was actually Malcador and Russ who had the super close relationship, not really Russ and the Emperor. The Emperor saw him as his favourite dog or pet rather than a peer and friend. Ferris and the Big E had a close bond built on mutual respect. After all, their meeting was literally an earth-shaking anime tier punch-on. The Emperor asked Ferris his opinions on the newly discovered Vulcan, and the two actually shared a bit of banter. I'm sure their relationship went deeper, however with Ferris's lore being cut painfully short, quite literally, we don't get to see the full scope of it. We are now at the pointy end of things. Despite what happened to Magnus, he and the Emperor were extremely close. They shared a deep psychic connection, with Magnus even saying that he and the Emperor were able to speak while he was still in his infant gestation pod, as well as the fact that they were able to meet in the warp a number of times before the Emperor even arrived at Prospero. Magnus was considered to be the most loyal of the Emperor's sons, which adds another layer of tragedy to his fall to chaos. The Emperor really liked Psykers. He felt he could relate to them on a deeper level and he loved hanging out with them. Magnus would have easily been his favourite in that regard. However, the Big E also saw Magnus's monstrous ego and lack of caution regarding the warp, which would have given him the ick. So while Magnus was definitely up there as a favourite prior to him ruining the Webway project and fucking over the entirety of humanity, he wasn't quite number one. Then there are three. A lot of people say Sanguinius was the Emperor's favourite because he is everyone's favourite, but we don't actually get to see much in the way of the Big E's thoughts on the Angel. Sure, he liked him and he was a fantastic asset for the Imperium, as well as the closest thing the Emperor had to a spiritual successor since Lorgar started fiddling kids, but we just don't know how much the Emperor actually liked him. I mean, I guess we will know soon, since Horus just viciously beat Sanguinius to death, and now his corpse is strung up, waiting for the Emperor to see it, so when we get to that scene, we can see how much the Big E truly loved his glorious hawk boy. Another hot contender for Big E's favorite is the lion. The Emperor respected the shit out of the lion. He could totally rely on him to enact his will, and he loved that the lion didn't need to have his dick sucked to stroke his ego to keep him on side, unlike most of the other Primarchs. While many Primarchs as well as Malcador doubted the lion's true loyalty, the Emperor never did, not even for a second. However, I wouldn't say the relationship was based on a deep emotion or love, more like an intense mutual respect. In recent lore, the Emperor has given the newly returned lion both a new sword as well as his shield to use in battle, showing that he still has a lot of care for his knightly son. But none of these Primarchs are the Emperor's favorite, because the Emperor's favorite, in my opinion, is Vulcan. This might rattle your balls and clench your assholes, especially all the dweeby fuckheads on Reddit think Vulcan and the Emperor didn't have much of a relationship, but no, Vulcan was by far the Emperor's favorite for the simple fact that Vulcan was a kind, caring man who maintained his humanity. The Emperor was actually pretty upset about removing his own humanity to gain power. He actively encouraged his favored servants to keep theirs, such as giving Constantine Valdor a special spear that would help him in that regard. The Emperor wanted humans, not demigods, to rule humanity, so by Vulcan being the most human and compassionate, he was by default the Emperor's favorite. Here's the evidence. When Vulcan was being horrifically tortured by Conrad, the Emperor appeared to Vulcan in a disguised form to give him the strength and will to maintain his sanity. If it wasn't for the Emperor doing this and comforting his son, Vulcan never would have been able to escape Conrad. The Emperor also entrusted Vulcan to create the Talisman of Seven Hammers, the ultimate failsafe if the Emperor was to lose, a device that would destroy Terra and kill all the traitors along with it. The Emperor even told Vulcan that he and he alone stands out from the rest of his brothers due to his humanity, with the Emperor always referring to Vulcan as my son, which is not something he said to many of the other Primarchs. Obviously this is just my opinion, but I really reckon that the big chocolate cuddly pyromaniac with the glowing red eyes was the Big E's favourite son. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then get in on the Majorkill merch Boxing Day sale, the last chance to pick up some of these designs. Hit the subscribe button, then hit the real subscribe button for more favoured content. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.